I did not scream. I did not smash my champagne flute. I simply stood frozen, watching the seat that belonged to me accidentally vanish while my husband watched in silence. To them, this was a subtle power play, a little game for the elite. But they failed to realize one thing. I do not operate on emotion. I operate on receipts, logs, and evidence that no one sees until it is far too late. My name is Natalia Whitfield. I'm 34 years old, and on the worst night of my life, I was wearing a midnight blue silk gown that cost more than my first car. The air inside the Crown Mere conservatory was thick with the scent of expensive orchids and old money. This was Fair Lake, Connecticut. It was a place where people did not scream to make a point. They whispered. They smiled. They destroyed you over or sparkling water. The gala was for Derek, my husband, the new senior partner at Bishop Klein Advisory. I had spent 6 years building the infrastructure of his life. I managed his schedule, his diet, his image, and his ego. I was the foundation. Tonight was supposed to be the unveiling of the monument we had built together. We were standing near the entrance when Marjorie Vale materialized. My mother-in-law moved like a shark in Chanel. She did not hug me. She never hugged me. She simply reached into her clutch and pulled out a lanyard. It was a cheap plastic thing on a black nylon cord. "Here," she said. Her voice was low. "Confidential. Put this on, Natalia. Security is strictly enforced tonight. They are checking everyone." I took it. I looked at the laminated card. It did not say Natalia Whitfield. It did not say spouse. It did not even say VIP. It said guest services. I looked up. The lobby was filling with 300 people. The partners, the investors, the wives, every single one of them was wearing a gold-rimmed pin or a satin wristband. No one was wearing a plastic lanyard that looked like it belonged to a high school volunteer. "Marjorie," I said. My voice was steady. "This says guest services." "It is just a classification code for security," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "Do not be difficult, dear. It is for access. The security team needs to know who is allowed in the back zones." I turned to Derek. He was standing right there. He was adjusting his cufflinks, looking at a point somewhere over my left shoulder. He had to hear her. He had to see the cheap plastic tag dangling from my manicured fingers. "Derek?" I asked. He finally looked at me, but his eyes were glazed over vacant. He gave me a tight, pained smile, the kind of smile a politician gives when a constituent asks a question they do not want to answer. "Just wear it for now, Nat." He said, "It is easier. We do not want to cause a scene with security. Mom organized the logistics. She knows what she is doing." He was not confused. He was compliant. That was the first data point. I did not argue. I did not throw the lanyard on the floor. I slipped it over my head. The plastic felt cold against my skin. It clashed violently with the midnight blue silk. It was a brand. I followed them into the main hall, walking 2 steps behind just like a good assistant. The ballroom was breathtaking. A glass ceiling revealed the night sky. The tables were set with crystal and silver that caught the ambient light. We approached the head table. This was the seat of power. It was positioned on a raised platform, commanding a view of the entire room. I scanned the arrangement. There were 8 chairs. I counted the place settings. 8 sets of silverware, 8 crystal goblets, 8 napkins folded into swans. I walked along the edge of the table reading the calligraphy on the heavy cream card stock. Mr. Derek Whitfield, Mrs. Marjorie Vale, Mr. Arthur Bishop, Mrs. Elena Bishop. I kept reading. I was looking for Mrs. Natalia Whitfield. I was looking for my name, the name I had taken, the name I had polished. It was not there. I stopped at the empty chair next to Derek. There was no card. The space where the card should have been was smooth, empty tablecloth. "Derek," I said, "where am I sitting?" Before he could answer, the air shifted. The crowd seemed to part. A woman approached the table. She was tall, wearing a structure of crimson velvet that looked less like a dress and more like a weapon. Sloane Mercer, the new star of Bishop Klein, the woman they called the Deal Queen. I knew her reputation. I knew she had closed the acquisition that secured Derek his promotion. She did not look at me. She walked straight to the empty chair, the chair next to Derek, the chair without my name, and she sat down. She moved with the absolute certainty of someone who knows exactly where gravity is located. She smoothed her crimson skirt and placed a glittering clutch on the table. Then, as if realizing there was a person standing above her, she looked up. Her eyes were cool, amused. "Oh," she said. She did not stand up. She extended a hand, palm down, limp. "You must be Natalia. Derek has mentioned you." She said it in the same tone one uses to address a receptionist who has brought the wrong coffee. I took her hand. It was cold. "Sloan," I said. She pulled her hand away quickly and turned her back to me. She placed a hand on Derek's forearm. It was a gesture of intimate ownership. She leaned in, whispering something into his ear. Derek laughed. It was a nervous, breathy laugh, but he leaned into her touch. They looked like a portrait, the successful executive and his powerful partner. I stood there. I was the only person at the head table who was standing. "Derek," I said again. He looked up at me, startled as if he had forgotten I was there. He glanced at Sloan, then at the room full of watching eyes, then back at me. Panic flickered in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a steel shutter of self-preservation. "Just give me a second, Matt," he said. "We are sorting out the seating chart. Just hang tight." He turned back to Sloan. He turned his back on his wife. I stepped back. I stepped off the raised platform and onto the main floor. I stood in the aisle, the plastic guest services badge catching the light. The dinner service began. Waiters in white jackets moved through the room with trays of champagne. I stood near the pillar, trying to make myself invisible, trying to calculate the probability of this being a mistake. 0%. This was not an error. This was architecture. A man in a tuxedo, a senior partner I recognized but had never met, brushed past me. He stopped and held out his empty glass. "Miss," he said, not looking at my face, only at the lanyard, "could you get this refreshed and bring a napkin?" I spilled something. My heart hammered against my ribs. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. He thought I was staff. "I do not work here," I said. He frowned, pointing a thick finger at my chest. "It says guest services. Just get the wine." He walked away before I could respond. A moment later, a woman tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me, where's the ladies' room? The signage is terrible." I looked at the head table. Derek was toasting with Sloan, their glasses clinking. He was smiling. He was basking in the adoration of the room. He could see me. I knew he could see me. I was standing 10 feet away, being ordered around by his colleagues. He did not look. He kept his eyes fixed on the crimson velvet of Sloane's dress. He was letting this happen. He was watching them erase me. I did not cry. Tears are a release of pressure, and I needed to keep the pressure contained. I needed to compress it until it became something useful, something hard. I looked at the table one last time. Sloan was laughing, her head thrown back, exposing her long, pale throat. Derek was watching her with a look of admiration that he used to save for me. I reached for my left hand. My wedding ring was a platinum band with a 2-carat diamond. Derek had bought it when we were 28. Using the bonus from the first deal, I helped him navigate. It was heavy. I slid it off my finger. The metal felt warm for my skin. My finger felt suddenly light, naked. I walked back up the 2 steps to the platform. The conversation at the nearby tables died down. People were watching. They sensed the tension. I walked up to the empty space on the tablecloth between Derek and Sloan, the space where my name card should have been. I did not say a word. I did not scream. I did not throw wine. I placed the ring on the white linen. It made a dull, heavy sound. Thud. It sat there shimmering under the chandelier. Light. A small circle of platinum in a sea of emptiness. Derek froze. He stared at the ring. His face drained of color. He looked up at me, his mouth opening, but no sound came out. Sloan stopped laughing. She looked at the ring, then at me, her expression unreadable. I held Derek's gaze for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then I turned around. I walked down the steps. My heels clicked rhythmically on the marble floor. The sound was sharp, precise. I walked past the man who wanted wine. I walked past the woman who needed a bathroom. I walked past the hundreds of people who were whispering behind their hands. As I reached the double doors of the exit, I felt a presence behind me. Marjorie. She did not touch me this time. She leaned in close, her perfume cloying and sweet. "Good," she whispered. Her voice was a hiss of steam. "Finally, the girl understands her place." I did not stop. I did not look back. I pushed through the heavy oak doors and out into the cool night air of the corridor. The noise of the party cut off instantly, replaced by the hum of the HVAC system. I reached into my clutch and pulled out my phone. I needed to call a car. I needed to get away from this building before the magma inside me breached the surface. The screen lit up. A notification was waiting. A text message. It was from a number I did not have saved, but the preview showed the name and the signature. Sloan Mercer. I stared at the message preview. The timestamp was 1 minute ago. She must have sent it while I was standing right there. While she was laughing at the table, my thumb hovered over the screen. I unlocked the phone. The message was short. It was brutal. And it was the second piece of evidence I collected that night. I took a deep breath of the sterile hallway air. The game had not just started. It was already in the middle moves. And they thought they had already won. I walked toward the exit signs, the plastic badge still swinging around my neck like a noose. They were wrong. They thought they had shamed me into submission. They did not know that shame burns off. Rage burns off, but receipts last forever. I pushed the final door open and stepped into the dark. The interior of my car was freezing. I sat in the driver's seat of my SUV in the far corner of the Crown Mere Conservatory parking lot. But I did not start the engine. I could not bring myself to turn the key. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles had turned the color of bone. Outside, the Garler was still in full swing. The bass from the live band thrummed through the heavy stone walls of the venue, vibrating against the glass of my windshield. It was a muffled rhythmic pulsing like a heartbeat that did not belong to me. It was the soundtrack of my own humiliation. Inside, they were toasting. Inside, Sloan Mercer was sitting in a chair that I had paid for with 6 years of emotional labor. Inside, my husband was smiling that practiced, charming smile that I had helped him perfect in front of our bathroom mirror. My phone lit up on the passenger seat. The screen was blinding in the darkness. I picked it up. The message from Sloan was waiting. I read it again, dissecting the syntax as if it were a flagged compliance email at work. Do not make a big thing out of this. You do not fit in Derek's world anymore. Go home, Natalier. It was not an apology. It was an eviction notice. She was not telling me to leave the party. She was telling me to leave the life. Then the calling started. Derek. The phone vibrated in my hand, a violent, demanding buzz. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again immediately. I answered this time, but I did not speak. I just listened to the silence on the line, waiting for him to say he was sorry, waiting for him to say he was coming out to the car, waiting for him to say it was all a terrible mistake. Natalia. His voice was a harsh whisper. I could hear the clinking of silverware in the background. He was still at the table. He had not even stood up. Where the hell did you go? You are making me look incredibly awkward here. People are asking questions. I listened to his breathing. I listened for the regret. It was not there. There was only annoyance. He was not worried about his wife. He was worried about the disruption to the broadcast. You are being dramatic. He hissed when I did not answer. Just come back inside and we will find you a chair at the partners' table in the back. Do not be childish. I ended the call. I blocked his number. Then I started the engine. The roar of the motor felt like the first breath I had taken in an hour. I did not drive home. Home was a 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs that suddenly felt like a museum of a life that no longer existed. I could not go there. I could not look at the wedding photos in the hallway or the coffee machine we bought together last Christmas. I drove toward the highway, merging into the sparse traffic. The street lights passed overhead in a rhythmic blur of orange and white. I needed noise. I needed light that wasn't trying to be romantic. I needed a place where people didn't care about optics. I pulled into the Ridgeway Diner. It was a 24-hour spot near the industrial park, a place of chrome, vinyl, and harsh fluorescent lighting. It was the kind of place where truck drivers and insomniacs went to be alone together. I walked in. my midnight blue gown rustling softly against the checkered tile floor. A few heads turned. A woman encounter at a roadside diner was an anomaly in the data set, but no one said anything. I slid into a booth in the far corner near the window. The waitress, a woman in her 60s with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, dropped a laminated menu on the table. Her name tag said Daphne. "Potty?" she asked. She didn't look at my dress. She looked at my eyes. "Black," I said, "and pie cherry. You look like you need the whole pie." "Honey," she said, scribbling on her pad. When she walked away, I pulled out my phone. I didn't open Instagram. I didn't open my messages. I opened a secure folder in my cloud storage app. I renamed the folder Receipts. This was not a reaction. This was a reflex. I am a forensic compliance investigator for Redwood Signal Labs. My job is not to trust people. My job is to look at a system that appears to be functioning perfectly and find the one line of code that proves it is rotting from the inside. I track digital footprints. I analyze communication logs for intent. I find the things people think they have deleted. Tonight was not an accident. You do not accidentally print a guest list without a wife's name. You do not accidentally seat a business partner in the spouse's chair. These were system errors that had been hard-coded into the program. I sat there, the fluorescent light humming overhead, and I began to audit my marriage. It hadn't started tonight. I saw that now. The data had been there for months, but I had categorized it as noise rather than signal. 3 months ago, Derek stopped inviting me to the Friday night mixers. It is just boring shop talk. Nat, you would hate it. 2 months ago, he asked me to stop posting photos of us on my public social media. Privacy concerns with the new promotion, he had said. Security protocol. Last month, I found a receipt for a dinner at Luku for two. When I asked him, he said it was a client meeting with an old man named Arthur, but the time stamp was for 11 at night on a Saturday. Daphne returned with the coffee and a slice of pie. She set the mug down with a heavy clatter. She lingered for a moment, wiping her hands on her apron. She looked at the phone in my hand, then at the empty ring finger where a tan line was still visible. "Men like that do not steal your seat in one night," Daphne said. Her voice was raspy like dry leaves. "They take it inch by inch. You lose the seat because you let them take the armrest, then the cushion, then the leg. By the time they take the whole thing, you are already standing up." She walked away before I could respond. Her words hit me with the precision of a sniper shot. She was right. I had permitted this. I had accommodated his ambition. I had made myself smaller so he could feel bigger. I had edited my own life to fit into the margins of his. I unlocked my phone again. I needed to reconstruct the timeline. I pulled up the shared calendar. I cross-referenced it with his credit card statements, which I managed because I handled all our household finances. September 14th, Derek claimed he was at a retreat in the Catskills. The credit card showed a charge for a spa in the city. The same spa Sloan Mercer tagged in a photo that same weekend. October 2nd, a charge for a jagged diamond bracelet. I never received a bracelet. November 10th, a call log record from our carrier. A 40-minute call to Sloan at 2 in the morning. He had told me he was on the phone with the London office dealing with a crisis. I wasn't looking at a husband anymore. I was looking at a subject. I was looking at a pattern of noncompliance. The anger that had been threatening to choke me began to cool. It crystallized into something sharp and manageable. Anger is messy. Anger makes you scream and throw things. Investigation is precise. Investigation gives you leverage. I took a sip of the bitter coffee. It burned my tongue, and the pain grounded me. I was not going back to that house tonight. If I went home, I would be the waiting wife. I would be the victim. I needed to be the operator. I opened the hotel booking app to find a room for the night. I would stay at the Ami, the one near my office. Just as I was about to confirm the booking, a notification slid down from the top of my screen. It was an automated calendar alert. Derek had forgotten to remove me from the family logistics shared calendar. Or perhaps he was just too arrogant to think I would check it. New event, added emergency strategy meeting. Time tomorrow, 8 in the morning. Location, Bishop Klein HQ. Conference Room B. Attendees, Derek Whitfield, Sloan Mercer, Legal Counsel. Subject: Spousal Optics Damage Control Narrative. I stared at the screen. Spousal optics. They weren't meeting to discuss their relationship. They weren't meeting to discuss the morality of what they had done. They were meeting to discuss how to spin the story. They were going to frame me. They were going to turn my silence into instability. They were going to paint me as the crazy, jealous wife who caused a scene, justifying Derek's need for a more suitable partner. I took a screenshot. I saved it to the receipts folder. Then I uploaded the photo of the empty chair. I uploaded the text from Sloan. I uploaded the call logs I had just pulled. Daphne was wiping down the counter across the room. I caught her eye and nodded. She nodded back. I wasn't just a wife who had lost her seat. I was a professional who knew how to read a log file, and they had just made the classic mistake of every corrupt system I had ever investigated. They left a paper trail, and tomorrow, while they were busy trying to control the narrative, I would be busy securing the data. I stood up, threw a $1.20 bill on the table for a $1.03 coffee, and walked out of the diner. The cold wind hit my face, but I didn't shiver. I finally felt warm. I sat in the idling car outside the diner and dialed Rowan Pierce. It was 1:00 in the morning, but I knew he would be awake. Rowan was not just a former colleague. He was the only person I knew who spoke the same language of data and silence that I did. We had worked together in the forensic unit at Redwood for 5 years before he moved to independent consulting. There was no romantic history between us, which was exactly why I trusted him. He dealt in binary zeros and ones, true and false. Whitfield, he answered on the first ring. His voice was alert, devoid of sleep. Why are you calling from an unsecured line at this hour? I need a location, I said. I cannot go home. Are you safe? Physically? Yes. Legally? I am about to be a liability. Come to the loft. I will buzz you in. 20 minutes later, I was standing in Rowan's living room in downtown Fair Lake. The space was stark, filled with monitors and server racks that hummed with a low, comforting drone. I was still wearing the midnight blue gown, but now it felt like a costume from a play that had been cancelled halfway through the second act. Rowan handed me a bottle of water. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt and sweatpants. He did not ask if I was okay. He sat down on the leather ottoman opposite me and waited. Tell me the data, he said. I recounted the night. I did not use adjectives. I did not describe how my heart felt, like it was bleeding out. I gave him the sequence of events. Arrival at 1900 hours, I said. Marjorie Vale issued me a credential marked guest services. Derek witnessed the handover and remained silent. Upon entering the ballroom, the seating chart at the head table had been altered. My name card was missing. Sloan Mercer occupied the seat adjacent to Derek. I was directed to the service aisle. I removed my wedding ring, placed it on the table, and exited the venue. Rowan stared at me. He blinked once. It was the only sign of shock he allowed himself. He let them tag you as staff, Rowan said. It was a statement, not a question. He stood there, I confirmed. And then Sloan texted me to say I did not fit his world. Rowan stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the city skyline. If you go home tonight, or if you check into a hotel with a credit card linked to him, they will spin this. They will say you were hysterical. They will say you abandoned your husband on his big night because of a mental health episode. They are already building the narrative. Natalier, I know, I said. That is why I am here. Rowan turned back to me. His face was hard. What is the objective? Do you want an apology? Do you want to save the marriage? I looked down at my hands. They were steady. I want the truth to stand up. Rowan, not me. I want the facts to remain standing when the rest of their building burns down. Then we need to audit the asset, he said. I moved to his desk and opened my laptop. I had my own cloud access separate from the family network, but I had administrative privileges on our home finances because Derek hated numbers. He liked making money. He hated managing it. I pulled up the mortgage documents for the house in Fair Lake. Look at this, I said, pointing to the screen. Derek tells everyone he bought the house. He tells his partners he carries the lifestyle. But look at the origin of the down payment. Rowan leaned in. Transfer from N. Whitfield High Yield Savings $150,000. Date August 4, 2018. Correct, I said, and the monthly payments. He transfers a lump sum to the joint account for expenses, but I pay the mortgage directly from my salary because his income is variable and reinvested. Technically, on paper, I have paid 60% of the equity in that house. I kept scrolling. I opened the folder for his investments. He claims he is a genius trader, I said, but look at the timestamp on these trade executions. Rowan adjusted his glasses. These are executed minutes after you sent him your market analysis reports, the ones you do for your personal portfolio. He is front-running my research. I said he takes my data, executes the trade through his account, and claims the win. That is not just a bad marriage, Rowan. That is intellectual property theft. But that was just the baseline. I needed to know about tonight. I needed to know if the missing name card was an error or a hit. Do you remember the Garlow Planning Committee? I asked. Derek added me to the shared drive 3 months ago because he wanted me to proofread the bios for the program. He never removed my access. Check the logs, Rowan said. I navigated to the event folder. I found the file named Master Seating Chart Final PDF. I right-clicked Version History. My heart hammered a slow, cold rhythm against my ribs. Here, I whispered. At 10:00 in the morning yesterday, the file was modified. User MVA Ladman. That was Marjorie. In that version, Seat 1A was assigned to Mrs. Natalier Whitfield. Then, there was another modification. Time 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours before doors opened. User S. Mercer, Bishop Klein, Sloan, Rowan said, reading over my shoulder. I expanded the metadata. The changelog was brutal in its simplicity. Action. Delete entry. Natalier Whitfield. Action. Insert entry. Sloan Mercer. Action. Print request. Sent to concierge printer. It was not an accident, I said. The coldness in my chest spread to my limbs. They did not just forget me, Rowan. They printed a card with my name on it in the morning to make sure the layout worked. And then at 4:00, Sloan Mercer logged in, deleted my existence, and printed her own name. And Derek, I looked at the permissions list. User did. Whitfield viewed this document at 4:10 in the afternoon. He saw it. I said he saw the change 10 minutes after she made it. He knew when we walked in that door, when he watched me put on that plastic badge. He knew my name was not on that table. Rowan straightened up. The air in the room felt heavy. You are dealing with a different class of predator. A Taylor Sloan Mercer does not just play office politics. She destroys ecosystems. She has a reputation. She uses PR firms like Hitman. If you go after her with emotions, she will label you a jealous, unstable housewife who could not handle her husband's success. She will bury you in lawsuits for defamation before you can even file for divorce. I am not going to be emotional, I said. I am going to be litigious. You need a shark, Rowan said, and not just a divorce lawyer. You need someone who understands labor law and intellectual property. If Derek has been using your compliance models and your market analysis to advance his career at Bishop Klein, that is actionable. That is the leverage. I am going to calm and be alive, I said. Rowan whistled low. Be alive. She is nuclear. I am past conventional warfare, I replied. I am going to see her tomorrow morning. I am going to file for divorce, and I am going to file a cease and desist on the disposal of any digital assets held by Derek or Bishop Klein. Good, Rowan said. I will call a contact I have in digital forensics to see if we can preserve that server log before they scrub it. If we have that metadata authenticated, it proves premeditation. It proves malice. He reached for his phone. Let me make the call now. We do not want to wait until business hours. I turned back to my laptop to close the browser. I wanted to log out of the shared drive so they would not see my active session. But as I moved the cursor, a window popped up on my screen. It was a notification from our bank, the institution where we held our primary joint checking and savings accounts. Alert security settings updated. I frowned. I clicked on the notification. Password for user Natalier Whitfield has been changed. I tried to log in. I typed my password. Access denied. I tried the recovery email. Recovery email updated to Derek Whitfield Bishop Klein. Calm. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. I looked at the time on the corner of my screen. It was 2:15 in the morning. Rowan, I said. My voice was quiet. He stopped dialing and looked at me. They are awake, I said. I turned the laptop screen toward him, and they just cut off my access to the money. Rowan looked at the screen, then at me. His expression shifted from concern to a grim resolve. They are trying to starve you out, he said. They want you to wake up in the morning with zero balance and zero options. So you have to crawl back to them. I closed the laptop. The snap of the lid sounded like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. They made a mistake, I said. They think cutting off the money stops me. They forgot that I do not need money to talk to a lawyer. I just need evidence. We move at dawn, Rowan said. No, I corrected him, standing up and smoothing the silk of my ruined dress. We move now. The waiting room of Carmen Beelide's law firm was not designed for comfort. It was designed for intimidation. It was 6:30 in the morning, and the skyline of the city was just beginning to turn the color of bruised steel. I sat in a chair that cost more than my first year of college tuition, wearing a pair of sweatpants and an oversized hoodie I had borrowed from Rowan. My midnight blue garter gown was folded inside a plastic shopping bag at my feet. It looked like trash. In a way, it was the skin of a woman who no longer existed. Rowan sat next to me, typing furiously on his laptop. We were the first ones there. Carmen Beelide did not usually take walk-ins, but Rowan had called in a favor from a digital forensics expert who owed him, who in turn knew Carmen. When you work in the shadows of data compliance, you realize the world is very small and everyone is hiding something. The heavy oak door opened. A woman stood there. She was 60, perhaps older, with silver hair cut in a bob so sharp it could sever a limb. She wore a suit that was not black, but a gray so dark it absorbed the light around it. Mrs. Whitfield, she said. It was not a question. Bring the laptop, leave the bag. We followed her into her office. It was corner situated, overlooking the financial district, overlooking Bishop Klein. I sat down. I did not waste time with pleasantries. I did not ask how she was. I placed my phone and my laptop on her mahogany desk. I need to dissolve a marriage, I said, and I need to secure my assets before noon. Carmen looked at me. Her eyes were like scanners at a security checkpoint. They didn't see sadness. They looked for structural weakness. Tell me why you are here at dawn, she said. I gave her the timeline. I kept it clinical. I told her about the badge-marked guest services. I showed her the photo of the table with the missing name card. I showed her the timestamp of the text from Sloan Mercer. I showed her the calendar invite for the spousal optics meeting scheduled for later this morning. Finally, I showed her the screenshot of the bank notification telling me I had been locked out of my own money. I did not cry. My voice did not shake. The only betrayal of my body was my hands. They were trembling, a fine high-frequency vibration that I tried to hide by clasping them together on my lap. Carmen listened. She did not take notes. She simply watched me. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. He is not just leaving you, Natalier, she said. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly matter-of-fact. This is a demolition. They locked the accounts to panic you. They humiliated you in public to discredit you. They are creating a narrative where you are the unstable, jealous wife who caused a scene and had to be cut off for her own good. If we wait until they file, you will be playing defense for the next 2 years. I am not unstable. I said I am angry. Good. Carmen said anger is fuel. Sadness is sand in the engine. We need to move fast. They are creating a narrative. We are going to create a dossier. She pressed a button on her intercom. Get the paralegals in here. I want an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order on all marital assets. Freeze everything if he wants to buy a coffee this morning. I want him to have to ask a judge for permission and draft a petition for divorce on the grounds of cruel and inhuman treatment and constructive abandonment. She turned back to me. I need you to sign this engagement letter. Then we are going to send a preservation letter to Bishop Klein to the company. I asked. Absolutely, Carmen said. sliding a heavy document toward me. Derek is using company resources, their servers, their venue, their legal counsel to orchestrate this. That makes them a party to the dispute. We are going to demand they preserve every email, every chat log, every calendar entry that mentions your name. We will frame it as potential litigation regarding, she paused, searching for the right term, spouse liability. I supplied. If they are discussing spousal optics on company time, they are making my reputation a company matter. Carmen smiled. It was the first time she had smiled, and it looked like a shark smelling blood in the water. Exactly. I picked up the pen. The ink was black. I looked at the line where I had to sign. Natalier Whitfield. The name felt foreign now. I signed it quickly, the loops of the letters sharp and jagged. Do not go home, Carmen commanded as she took the paper back. Do not answer his calls. Do not answer his texts. If he shows up at your office, you call security. If he shows up at Rowan's, you call the police. You are now a fortress. Nothing goes in or out except through me. She turned to her computer and began typing. Then she stopped. She frowned, clicking her mouse a few times. That is interesting, she murmured. I asked. I have a contact in the clerk's office who monitors filings for high net worth individuals, Carmen said. It seems there was a draft document uploaded to the cloud repository that many of the city's family law attorneys use for collaborative review. It was uploaded 3 weeks ago. She turned the screen toward me. It was a document titled Postnuptial Agreement. I scanned the legal jargon. It was a waiver. It stated that in the event of a divorce, I would waive my right to any equity in the house, any interest in Derek's future earnings, and any claim to his retirement accounts in exchange for a lump sum payment of $50,000. $50,000. That was less than the bonus I helped him secure last year. He was going to make you sign this, Carmen said quietly. Look at the date on the metadata, 2 days before the gala. He probably planned to present it to you after the party. Maybe when you were drunk or tired, or maybe he was going to use the humiliation as leverage. Sign this and we can go back to normal. I felt a wave of Norser. This wasn't just about Sloane. This had been in the works for a month. He had planned to strip me of my dignity and then strip me of my security. He never gave it to me. I said, because he is arrogant, Carmen said. He thought he had more time, or he thought he could bully you into it later. But this, she tapped the screen. This proves premeditation. It proves he was planning to exit the marriage financially before he exited physically. My phone began to vibrate on the desk. Derek calling. Then a text. Derek, pick up the phone. Nat, this is getting ridiculous. I'm at the house. Where are you? Then another. Derek, I blocked the cards because I thought your phone was stolen. Call me. Liar. Rowan said from the corner. Don't answer. Carmen warned. I didn't answer. But I didn't ignore it either. I picked up the phone, took a screenshot of the texts and logged the time of the call in my notebook. 7:42 in the morning. I am not answering, I said, my voice cold. I am collecting data. I looked at Carmen. I want to send the preservation letter to Bishop Klein myself from my personal email, copying you. I want them to know I know. Do it, Carmen. But be careful with your wording. I opened my laptop. I didn't need a template. I knew how to write a compliance demand. I had written hundreds of them to General Counsel, Bishop Klein, Advisory, C.C. Carmen, Be Alive, Esker, Subject Demand for Preservation of Evidence Litigation Hold to whom it may concern. Please be advised that I, Natalier Whitfield, am retaining counsel regarding actions taken by your employee, Derek Whitfield, and your partner, Sloane Mercer. I have reason to believe that company resources, including but not limited to email servers, internal chat logs, and meeting rooms, have been utilized to conspire to defraud me of marital assets and damage my professional reputation. This is a formal demand to preserve all digital records containing the keywords Natalier, Whitfield, spouse, optics, postnup, and strategy. Failure to preserve these records will be treated as spoliation of evidence. Govern yourselves accordingly. Natalier Whitfield. I hit send. The sound of the key clicking felt like dropping a guillotine blade. 10 seconds later, my phone stopped ringing. Derek had stopped calling. He had probably just received a notification from his legal department. The silence was heavy. Kana looked at me with a new respect. You are good at this. I investigate people who think they are smarter than the system. I said Derek thinks the system protects him because he is a partner. He forgets that the system only protects the company. He just became a liability. Kamen stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the glass tower of Bishop Klein down the street. We have the TRO, she said. We have the divorce petition. We have the preservation letter. We have stopped the bleeding. But if you want to win, if you want to really stop them, we need more than a divorce settlement. She turned around, her silhouette sharp against the morning light. Sloane Mercer is not afraid of a scandal, Kalman said. She thrives on it. Being the other woman just makes her look desirable and powerful. She is not afraid of losing money. She has plenty. If we want to hurt her, we have to hit the one thing she values. Her reputation, I asked. No, Kalman said, shaking her head. Her license, her ability to play the game. We need to hit her on compliance. Compliance. The word hung in the air. I closed my eyes. I let my mind drift back through the years of dinners I had sat through. The endless shop talk Derek had forced me to listen to, the documents he had asked me to look over because he was too lazy to read the fine print himself. I remembered a night about 8 months ago. Derek had come home late, drunk on expensive scotch and adrenaline. He was bragging about a deal Sloane was closing, a cross-border acquisition involving a mining company in South America and a shell corporation in Delaware. He had shown me the structure chart on his iPad, boasting about how creative Sloane was with the tax liabilities. I had looked at it. I remembered pointing out a red flag, a payment, to a consultant entity that had no physical address, only a P.O. box in a jurisdiction known for money laundering. Don't be such a cocked gnat. Derek had laughed, taking the iPad away. It is how business gets done. I opened my eyes. She has a dirty transaction, I said. Last spring. Project Rio. There was a facilitation payment that looked a lot like a bribe. Kalman's eyes lit up. Do you have proof? I don't have the files, I said, but I know where they are buried, and now that I have demanded they preserve evidence, I looked at my laptop screen. I know exactly what to ask for in discovery. Kalman sat back down and picked up her pen. Tell me everything you remember about Project Rio. I can do better than that, I said, pulling up a blank spreadsheet. I can draw you the flow of funds. The morning sun finally broke through the clouds, flooding the office with harsh, revealing light. The night was over. The game of hide-and-seek was finished. Now we were playing chess, and I was the only one at the board who knew that the queen was standing on a trap door. The digital assault began at 9:00 in the morning. It did not come with shouting or banging on doors. It came in a series of vibrations in my pocket, a relentless buzzing that felt like a swarm of insects trying to burrow through the fabric of my borrowed sweatpants. I was sitting in a temporary workspace Rowan had set up in the corner of Kalman's conference room. My phone lay on the polished mahogany table. Screen up, buzz a text from Derek. You humiliated me in front of the most important people in the industry. Do you have any idea how much damage you did to the firm's image last night? Pick up the phone. I did not pick up the phone. I did not type a furious reply. I did not ask him how he dared to talk about humiliation after stripping my name from the table. I simply pressed the side buttons. Click. Screenshot taken. Image saved to the receipts folder. Oops. Another one. Stop playing the victim. You walked out. You abandoned me. That is on you. Click screenshot. Save. Then came the voicemail. It was Marjorie. I did not lift the phone to my ear. I played it on speaker, letting her voice fill the sterile air of the law office. Nay, Taylor, darling. Her voice was smooth like velvet wrapped around a jagged rock. I heard you made quite a scene. A word of advice from someone who has survived this world longer than you have. A wise woman knows that her power comes from standing behind her husband, not demanding the spotlight. You are being hysterical. Come back to the house. We can fix this before you ruin your own future. Rowan looked up from his laptop, his face disgusted. She talks like she is auditioning for a soap opera. She is establishing a record, I said, my voice flat. She is trying to paint me as the erratic, unsupportive wife. If this goes to court, she wants to play the concerned matriarch. I saved the audio file. I backed it up to 3 different cloud servers. Then came the email. This was the one that made my blood run cold. It wasn't from Derek. It wasn't from Marjorie. It was from an automated address. Legal compliance. Bishop Klein. Calming. Subject notice regarding conduct at Crown Mere Garler. Dear Mrs. Whitfield, we are writing to express our concern regarding the disruptive behavior exhibited at the firm's celebratory event yesterday evening. Bishop Klein Advisory values decorum and stability. We request that you refrain from contacting firm employees or visiting the premises while we conduct an internal review of the incident. I stared at the screen. They are banning me, I said. They are treating me like a security threat. They are setting the stage to file for a restraining order against me. It is a preemptive strike, Coleman said, walking into the room with a fresh pot of coffee. They know you know something. They are trying to discredit you before you open your mouth. Look at this, Rowan said, sliding his iPad across the table. It was LinkedIn, the professional networking site where reputations were manicured like bonsai trees. A post had just gone up from a senior advisor at Bishop Klein, a man who reported directly to Derek. True leadership requires a foundation of support at home. Last night, we celebrated a massive win for the firm, but we were reminded that not everyone has the strength to stand beside high performers. Success requires sacrifice. If your partner cannot handle the pressure, they cannot share the victory. Leadership, resilience, focus. It did not maim me. It did not have to. Everyone in Fairlake who was at that party knew exactly who the partner who cannot handle the pressure was. I felt a phantom pain in my chest, a dull ache where my heart used to be. They were not just leaving me. They were erasing me. They were rewriting history in real time to make me the villain of my own tragedy. They are fast. I said, they are very fast. We are faster, Rowan said. He pointed to the stack of hard drives on the table. I have mirrored your entire cloud history. I have the mortgage statements. I have the email logs from when you edited Derek's speeches. I have the metadata from the seating chart. We need witnesses, Coleman said. Osorio, the waiter, I said, closing my eyes, visualizing the room. Male, mid-20s, brown hair. He saw me put the ring down. The man who asked me for wine, Arthur Penhalagan, from the bond desk. He saw the badge. I started typing the list. Witnesses to the event. My phone buzzed again. I flinched, expecting another attack from Derek, but it was not Derek. It was a number I did not recognize, a burner number. The area code was local, but the caller ID was blocked. I saw what she did with the cards. I was working the floor. If you want the truth, I have a video. I stopped breathing for a second. I looked at the text. Rowan, I said, look, he read the message. It could be a trap. They could be trying to lure you out to serve you papers or get you into a confrontation. They can record. Or it could be a disgruntled employee. I said, the staff at those galas are invisible. Rich people think servers are furniture. They say and do things in front of them that they would never do in public. I typed back, who is this? The reply came 10 seconds later. Someone who hates bullets. Meet me at Liberty Plaza 1200 by the fountain. Come alone. You are not going alone, Coleman said immediately. I have to. I said, if I bring a lawyer, they will get scared and run. Then bring me digitally. Coleman said, we will set up a secure video call. You wear an earbud. I will witness the interaction. If they hand over evidence, I need to be able to testify to the chain of custody. I agreed. I changed out of the sweatpants and into a pair of dark jeans and a black turtleneck I had kept in my car. I pulled my hair back. I put on dark sunglasses. I looked less like a corporate wife and more like someone who was done being polite. Liberty Plaza was crowded at noon. Office workers were heating sandwiches on the granite benches. The fountain was loud, the rushing water drowning out conversations. It was the perfect place for a handover. I stood by the fountain, my phone in my hand. Coleman connected via a hidden app, the camera lens peeking out from my grip. I see him. Coleman's voice whispered in my ear. 300. Blue windbreaker. Nervous. I turned. A young man, maybe 22, was standing near a trash can looking around anxiously. He held a coffee cup with both hands. I walked over. "You texted me." He jumped slightly, then looked at me. Recognition flashed in his eyes. He had seen me last night. "This is Whitfield," he said. "I was the one who set the table." "What is your name?" "Just call me Ben," he said. He looked over his shoulder. "I do not want trouble, but I saw her, that woman in the red dress. She treated us like dirt all night, snapping her fingers, yelling at the manager. You said you have video," I said. My voice was calm, but my pulse was hammering. "We are not supposed to have phones on the floor," Ben said. "But I was filming the floral arrangement for my portfolio. I'm a design student." I left the phone, propped up against the centerpiece on the next table, to get a time lapse of the room filling up. He pulled a USB drive out of his pocket. It was small, silver, and looked like the most dangerous weapon in the world. "I checked the footage this morning," he said. "I saw you standing there last night. I saw you take off your ring, and then I saw what happened before you got there." He held out the drive. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. "Because my mom was a single mother," he said. "And because I heard what that guy said to you." "What guy?" "Your husband." I took the drive. "Thank you, Ben." He nodded, pulled his hood up, and vanished into the lunch crowd. "I have it," I said to the air. "Get back to the office," Coleman said in my ear. Now, 20 minutes later, we were back in the conference room. Rowan plugged the USB drive into an air-gapped laptop, a computer not connected to the internet, just in case the drive contained malware. He opened the file. Garler set up time-lapse S04 move. He scrubbed through the footage. It was a wide shot of the head table. Staff were moving around, placing glasses. The room was empty of guests. "There," I said. "Stop." On the screen, Sloane Mercer walked into the frame. She was wearing the red dress. She looked around, checking to see if anyone important was watching. She didn't look at the waiters. She walked up to the table. She picked up a place card. My place card. I watched as she ripped it in half. She didn't just remove it, she destroyed it. She dropped the pieces into her clutch. Then she pulled another card out of her bag, one she had brought with her, and placed it on the table. "Daughter," Rowan said, "that is malicious intent. That is premeditated emotional distress." "Wait," I said. I leaned closer to the screen. "Rewind 5 seconds. Look at the edge of the frame." Rowan tapped the key. The video jumped back. Sloane was standing there tearing the card. But she wasn't alone. A man walked into the shot from the left. He was wearing a tuxedo. He was adjusting his tie. It was Derek. He walked right up to her. He watched her tear the car. He watched her drop the pieces into her bag. He didn't stop her. He didn't look shocked. Sloane said something to him. She laughed and pointed to the new card. She had just placed her own name. And then Derek did something that broke whatever tiny foolish fragment of hope I had left. That this was all just a misunderstanding. He looked at the card with Sloane's name on it. He looked at Sloane, and he nodded. It was a firm, decisive nod, a sign of approval. He reached out and squeezed her arm, a gesture of partnership. He was not a bystander. He was not a victim of her manipulation. He was the architect. I stared at the pixelated image of my husband agreeing to erase me. The silence in the room was absolute. The sounds of the city outside, the sirens, the traffic, the wind faded away. He knew, I whispered. The realization was not a hot flush of anger anymore. It was cold. It was absolute zero. He did not just let it happen. "Coleman," he signed off on it. Coleman looked at the screen, her face grim. "This changes the strategy. This is no longer just a divorce case. This is a conspiracy to inflict damage." He nodded. I said again. I felt tears pricking my eyes, but I willed them back. I turned that sorrow into something hard, something sharp. He nodded. Rowan pulled the drive out. "I am making 5 copies. One for the court, one for the vault, one for the cloud, one for your phone, and one for insurance." I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the Bishop Klein Tower somewhere in that glass needle. Derek was sitting in a meeting, probably talking about spousal optics, probably telling the lawyers that I was crazy, that I was imagining things. He thought he was safe. He thought no one was watching the head table before the guests arrived. "He wants a war?" I said to the reflection in the glass. I am going to give him an apocalypse. I turned back to Common and Rowan. File the papers, I said, and add the video to the evidence list, but do not send it to them yet. Let them lie under oath first. I want them to deny it on the record, and then we play the tape. I sat in the sterile silence of the conference room and played the video file for the fourth time. The timestamp on the screen reads 6:30 in the evening. This was 30 minutes before I had arrived at the Gala. On the screen, the resolution was grainy but unmistakable. Derek stood near the head table. He was not alone. Sloane Mercer was to his left, her crimson dress acting as a beacon in the empty hall, and standing in front of them, holding a stack of heavy cream card stock, was Marjorie, my mother-in-law. I watched Marjorie say something. She held up a card. I zoomed in. It was my name, Natalia Whitfield. Marjorie made a face, a sneer of distaste, and made a ripping motion with her hands. She did not tear it yet. She was asking for permission. She looked at Derek. This was the moment. This was the moment a husband defends his wife. This was the moment he says that despite our problems, I am still his partner. Derek did not speak. He simply looked at the card, then looked at Sloane. Sloane smiled and tapped her watch, indicating a timeline. Derek turned back to his mother and gave a short, sharp nod. It was a transaction. Marjorie ripped the card in half. She did it with efficiency, dropping the pieces into a waste bin beneath the table skirting. Then she pulled a fresh card from the bottom of the stack, Sloane's card, and placed it on the white linen. I hit the pause button. This is not an affair, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollowed out by the absolute freezing of my heart. If they were sleeping together, they would be hiding. They would be trying to keep me in the dark to avoid a messy divorce. Common leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the frozen image of Derek's nodding head. Go on. This is not passion, I continued, analyzing the body language as if it were fraudulent wire transfer. Look at their posture. Derek is not leaning toward Sloane intimately. He is standing with his arms crossed, his weight evenly distributed. That is his deal-closing stance. He stands like that when he is terminating an employee or selling a distressed asset. I looked at Rowan. They are not hiding an affair. They are executing a liquidation strategy. To them, I am not a wife. I am a bad debt. I am a non-performing asset. They need to write off the books before the fiscal year ends. Common nodded slowly. I agree. This proves alienation of affection. Certainly, but legally it proves something more valuable for us. It proves intentional infliction of emotional distress. They staged a public event to psychologically destabilize you. Fine. To make me snap, I said. To make me cause a scene so they could point and say I was the problem. Suddenly, a memory flashed in my mind. It was sharp and bright, piercing through the fog of shock. 3 weeks ago, a Tuesday night, I had the flu. I was lying in bed, feverish, drifting in and out of sleep. Derek had come into the bedroom with a glass of water and a stack of papers. Just some tax updates. Nat, he had said, his voice soothing. The accountants need to reclassify some joint holdings for the new fiscal year. I just need you to initial here, here, and here. Go back to sleep. I had signed. I trusted him. I was his wife, and I was sick, and I trusted him to handle the paperwork. The postnip, I whispered. But, Common asked. He tried to get me to sign something 3 weeks ago. I said, the realization making me nauseous. He told me it was tax documents, but he was hovering. He was sweating. I remember now. He pulled the papers away the second I signed them. Did you sign the waiver? Common asked, her voice sharp. I do not know, I said. I was running a fever of 102, but if I did not sign the right page or if the signature was shaky, then he needed a backup plan. Rowan finished. I pulled my laptop toward me. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I needed to see what else I had missed. I logged into the old email account, the one we used for household management, the one Derek thought was just for utility bills and contractor quotes. But Derek often drafted his difficult emails there because he was paranoid about the Bishop Klein server monitoring his personal correspondence. I went to the drafts folder. Most of it was junk. Drafts of complaints to the landscaping company, drafts of angry letters to the Homeowners Association, but there was one draft saved 20 days ago. No subject line. I clicked it. It was not addressed to anyone. It was a note to himself, or perhaps a memo he intended to send to his personal lawyer. Strategy meeting notes. Primary objective: secure signature on postnuptial amendment by October 15. Contingency: if subject refuses to sign or if validity is contested due to capacity issues, illness, initiate Plan B. Plan B. Protocol: public destabilization. Create narrative of mental instability. Leverage Garler event for maximum optical impact. If she reacts aggressively, use security footage to file for emergency protection order. Narrative control is priority. I read the words again. Subject: he did not call me Nataler. He called me subject. He wrote it down, I said. I turned the laptop so Carmen and Rowan could see. He actually wrote it down. Carmen read the screen. A slow, terrifying smile spread across her face. He put the conspiracy in writing. He just handed us the case. This is not just divorce, Natalia. This is fraud. This is conspiracy to commit civil damages. I am going to destroy him, I said. It was not a threat. It was a statement of fact. No, Carmen corrected. We are going to dismantle him. There is a difference. I know how to hit back, I said. I do not need to scream at him. I need to open a file. I looked at Ron. Do you remember the Rio project? Rowan nodded. The lithium mine deal, Sloan's big win. I helped him with the risk assessment on that, I said unofficially. He brought the files home because the data room was too slow. He asked me to run background checks on the local partners in Brazil. I found red flags, shell companies, directors who did not exist. Did he disclose them? Rowan asked. He told me to forget I saw them. I said he said Sloan had handled it with a facilitation fee. At the time, I thought he meant a legal consulting fee. But now I opened a new window. I navigated to the Bishop Klein external whistleblower portal. It was a third-party site hosted by an independent law firm to ensure anonymity and compliance with federal regulations. Wait, Rowan said, putting a hand on my arm. Be very careful, Natalia. You can only use information you have legal access to. If you hack his work email to get the documents, you go to jail and the evidence is inadmissible. You become the criminal. I am not hacking anything. I said, I am using my memory. I am reporting a credible suspicion based on information shared with me by my spouse during the course of our marriage. I am not uploading stolen documents. I am providing a roadmap for their audit team to find the documents themselves. I began to type to the Independent Compliance Committee. I am submitting this report regarding potential violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act FCPA involving a transaction known internally as Project Rio. Details of the concern. During the second quarter of this year, specific payments categorized as consulting fees were made to an entity registered in the Cayman Islands. This entity shares an address with a known shell corporation previously flagged for money laundering. The partner in charge of this transaction, Sloan Mercer, and the senior advisor, Derek Whitfield, were made aware of these discrepancies, but proceeded with the transaction. I typed steadily. I did not use emotional language. I did not say my husband is a liar. I used the language of my profession. Potential conflict of interest. It has come to my attention that the consulting entity receiving these fees may have undisclosed ties to the partners executing the deal. I added the dates. I remembered. I added the names of the shell companies I had seen on his iPad screen that night in our living room. You are pulling the pin on a grenade, Carmen warned softly. Once you send this, federal regulators will get involved. Bishop Klein will be turned upside down. Derek will lose his job. Sloan will lose her license. This is the nuclear option. I looked at the video still frozen on the screen. I looked at my husband, nodding as his mother ripped my name in half. They did not just take my seat, I said. They tried to take my sanity. They wanted to make me believe I was crazy so they could steal my life. I pressed submit. The screen refreshed. Thank you. Your report has been received. Case number BK 99204X. An independent investigator will review these claims within 24 hours. I sat back. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from the adrenaline of finally striking back. "It is done," I said. Carmen's phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up, glancing at the screen. Her expression hardened instantly. The professional mask slammed down over her features. "Natalia," she said, her voice dropping an octave. "We were too slow on the assets." "What do you mean?" I asked. "My clerk just updated the docket," Carmen said. "Derek and his lawyers just filed an emergency motion at the family court 10 minutes ago." "Motion for what?" "Motion for an ex parte order to freeze marital assets." Carmen read from her phone, citing dissipation of assets by an unstable spouse. "They are claiming you are draining the accounts to fund a manic episode. They are asking the judge to give Derek sole control of the finances until a mental health evaluation can be performed." I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "They are trying to lock me in a cage," I said. "They are using the money to force me into a diagnosis." "They are trying to cut off your supply lines," Rowan said. "They want you unable to pay." Carmen. "They want you unable to pay for a hotel." "They are too late," I said. "I just blew up their supply line." Carmen stood up and grabbed her briefcase. "We need to get to the courthouse now. We need to contest this motion before the judge signs it. If Derek gets that order, he can legally lock you out of everything, including the house." "He already locked me out of the marriage," I said, grabbing my purse. "Now he wants to lock me out of the world." I looked at Rowan. "Pack everything, the hard drives, the documents. Do not leave a single scrap of paper here." "Where are you going?" Rowan asked. "I am going to court," I said, walking toward the door. "And I am going to show the judge exactly who the unstable one is." The war was no longer in the shadows. They had fired the first shot in the legal system. But they did not know that I had just called in an air strike on their careers. I walked out of the office and into the elevator. As the doors closed, I checked my watch. It was 1:00 in the afternoon. By 5:00, one of us would be destroyed. And I had the receipts. The air in the family court building smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. It was 2:00 in the afternoon when Carmen Blythe and I pushed through the heavy double doors of the courtroom. We were moving fast in the legal world. Speed is the only armor that matters. If Derek's lawyers got their order signed before we could object, I would be locked out of my bank accounts, my credit cards, and essentially my life. We were 5 minutes early for the emergency hearing Carmen had forced onto the docket. Derek was not there. Of course he was not there. He had sent his lawyer, a man named Sterling, who looked like he charged $800 an hour to destroy families. "Your Honor," Sterling began, smoothing his tie, "my client requests an immediate freeze on all joint assets. Mrs. Whitfield is currently experiencing a severe mental health crisis. She caused a public disturbance at a corporate gala last night and has been erratic in her spending. We are simply trying to protect the marital estate until she can receive the help she needs." I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were white. He was doing exactly what the Plan B email said he would do. He was painting me as the hysterical woman. Carmen stood up. She did not shout. She did not wave her arms. She simply walked to the bench with a calm, terrifying precision. "Your Honor," Carmen said, "this is not a mental health crisis. This is a financial siege." She handed the judge a folder. "We have evidence that Mr. Whitfield prepared a postnuptial agreement 3 weeks ago, attempting to coerce my client into waiving her rights to marital assets. When she did not sign, he initiated a pre-planned strategy to humiliate her publicly to force submission. The plaintiff is not manic. She is being blackmailed." The judge, a woman with tired eyes and a skepticism carved into her face, opened the folder. She looked at the screenshot of the Plan B email draft. She looked at the video still of Derek nodding as his mother ripped my name card. She looked at the calendar invite for spousal optics. The silence in the courtroom stretched for 10 seconds. It felt like 10 years. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, looking over her reading glasses, "this email regarding public destabilization. Can you explain why your client wrote this 20 days ago?" Sterling stammered. "Your Honor, that is taken out of context. It is a draft. It looks like a playbook." The judge said. She slammed the folder shut. Motion to freeze assets is denied in part. I am granting a temporary restraining order preventing either party from moving more than $5,000 without court approval, but Mrs. Whitfield is to be granted immediate access to $10,000 for living expenses and legal fees. And Mr. Sterling, yes, Your Honor. If I find out that any digital evidence has been deleted after this timestamp, I will hold your client in contempt. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. We walked out of the courtroom. I self-lated. It was not a total victory, but I was not destitute. I could buy food. I could pay Common. I could survive. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Derek. I am sorry things got this far. Nat, this is getting out of hand. Lawyers just make everything messy. Come home. Let us talk about this privately. Just you and me. No spectators. I stared at the screen. He was pivoting. The bully tactic had failed, so now he was trying the charm. He wanted me back in the house where there were no witnesses, where he could manipulate reality until I apologized for being hurt. I typed 2 words. Contact Common. I blocked the number again. You did good, Common said as we reached the elevators. But do not get comfortable. They will appeal and they will get dirty. I know, I said. I am ready. I walked Common to her car, but I had to go to the overflow lot across the street to get mine. It was a gray, overcast afternoon. The wind whipped through the concrete pillars of the parking garage, making the shadows seem to move. I unlocked my car. Just as I reached for the handle, a figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. It was Marjorie. She was wearing a trench coat that cost more than my car, standing in a dirty parking garage like a queen visiting the slums. She blocked my path to the driver's door. "Hey, Taylor," she said. Her voice was not loud. It was the low, dangerous tone of a woman who was used to being obeyed. My hand went into my pocket. I double-tapped the shortcut button on my phone. Common had taught me this. Voice memo record. Connecticut law allows recording if one party consents. I was the consenting party. "Marjorie," I said, "I have nothing to say to you." "You are making a mistake," she said, stepping closer. "You think you are fighting for your dignity, but you are just embarrassing yourself. Derek has a future, a big future. You are never going to be the right fit for the altitude he is flying at." "Is that why you ripped my name up?" I asked. "To help him fly. I did what had to be done," she said, her eyes cold and hard like polished stones. Smart women know when to be silent. Smart women know that a husband's success is the only thing that matters. "If you drop this lawsuit, we will make sure you are taken care of. A nice apartment, a stipend, but if you keep digging—" She paused. She leaned in, invading my personal space. "If you keep digging, you will find dirt that you cannot wash off," she whispered. "Do not be a fool. Take the money and disappear. Get out of my way, Marjorie," I said. She smiled a thin, pitying smile and stepped aside. "I warned you." I got into the car and locked the doors. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a tracked bird. I drove out of the garage, my hands slick on the steering wheel. I did not go to a hotel. I went to a coffee shop on the edge of town, one with reliable Wi-Fi and too many people for anyone to threaten me. Rowan met me there 30 minutes later. "I have the recording," I said, sliding the phone across the table. "She offered me a bribe to drop the suit, and she threatened me." Rowan listened to the audio with his headphones. He nodded. "Admissible. It goes to character. But she said something interesting. If you keep digging, you will find dirt you cannot wash off." She is not talking about the marriage, Natalier. She is talking about the business. "It is Sloan." I said it has to be Sloan. "Derek is arrogant, but he is lazy. He does not build complex structures. Sloan does. Marjorie protects Derek, but Sloan feeds him." "I did some digging while you were in court," Rowan said. He opened his laptop. "You know that charity Sloan runs, the Crown Mere Community Fund." "I know it," I said. "I am listed as an honorary financial advisor. They put my name on the website 3 years ago to add credibility because I have a compliance background. I never attended a meeting." "Well," Rowan said, turning the screen toward me, "I looked at their public tax filings. They are a nonprofit, so their 990 forms are public. Look at the expense ratio. I scan the document. Travel and entertainment expenses, $400,000. Consulting fees, $300,000 for a local arts charity that gives out $50,000 in scholarships a year. Rowan asked, "That math does not work." She is using the fund. I realized she's washing money through the charity. She uses the consulting fees to pay off people or maybe pay herself tax-free. And she charges her high-end lifestyle to the travel budget. And here is the kicker, Rowan said. Who signs off on the audit? I looked at the signature line. Derek Whitfield, treasurer. He signs the checks. I said, she spends the money and he signs the checks. I sat back. The coffee shop noise faded away. This was the leverage. This was the nuclear weapon Kalman had talked about. But I had to be precise. I am still an advisor, I said. Technically, they never removed me. So I have a fiduciary duty, I said. If I suspect mismanagement, I am legally obligated to report it. If I do not, I could be liable. I opened my laptop. I drafted a formal letter, not to Derek, not to Sloan, to the board of directors of the Crownmere Community Fund, to the board. As an honorary financial advisor to this organization, I have reviewed the recent public filings. I have identified significant irregularities regarding administrative expenses that exceed industry standards by 300%. In accordance with my ethical obligations, I am formally requesting an independent forensic audit of all travel and consulting expenditures for the last 24 months. Sincerely, Natalia Whitfield. I hit send. You just kicked the hornet's nest, Rowan said. No, I said I just poured gasoline into it. I drove to the Ami Hotel. Kalman had secured a room under her firm's name so Derek could not track me. I was exhausted. My body felt heavy, like I was moving through water. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the city lights. I had won the day. I had money. I had evidence. I had the upper hand. My laptop chimed. A new email. It was not from the board. It was from a personal Gmail address I did not recognize. Watch 01. I opened it. Subject: You need to see this. Mrs. Whitfield, I work in the back office at the fund. I saw your email requesting the audit. You are right about the money, but you are wrong about one thing. You think you are exposing them. But Sloan saw this coming. She has been preparing for an audit for 6 months. I attached a document found on the shared server. You should read it before you celebrate. I clicked the attachment. It was a PDF of a memo. Internal memo liability, allocation strategy, project fund reorganization. I read the text, my breath caught in my throat. In the event of regulatory scrutiny regarding the consulting outflows, responsibility shall be attributed to the external advisory team who approved the risk models, and they're listed as the primary oversight advisor responsible for approving the fraudulent expenditures was in Maine. Natalia Whitfield. I dropped the phone on the duvet. They hadn't just stolen my seat. They hadn't just tried to steal my dignity. Sloan Mercer had been forging my signature on approval documents for 6 months. She wasn't just hiding money. She was building a fall guy. And the fall guy was me. I stood up and walked to the window. The fear was gone. The shock was gone. I was no longer fighting for a divorce settlement. I was fighting to stay out of federal prison. Okay, I whispered to the reflection in the glass. You want to make me the villain? Fine. But you forgot one thing. I picked up my phone and dialed Kalman. Wake up, I said when she answered. We are not going to family court tomorrow. We are going to the FBI. The morning sun hit the glass facade of Redwood Signal Labs, turning the building into a blinding mirror. I walked through the revolving doors. At 8:00 in the morning, my stomach twisted into a tight, cold knot. I had spent the night staring at the ceiling of a hotel room, thinking about the forged signatures and the memo that named me as the scapegoat. I tapped my badge against the security turnstile. I held my breath. If the light turned red, it meant I was already locked out. It meant they had won. The green light. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding and walked toward the elevator. But I did not make it to my desk. Natalia, a voice called out from the reception area. It was Marcus, the director of human resources. He was a man who usually avoided eye contact unless he was handing you a severance package. Today, he was walking straight toward me with a grim expression. "We need to talk," he said. "Conference room A. Now, leave your bag at the desk." I felt the eyes of the receptionist on me. The air in the lobby seemed to be sucked out, leaving a vacuum of silence. This was it, the second wave of the attack. I walked into the conference room. It was a glass box visible to everyone but soundproof. Marcus sat at the head of the table. Next to him was the company's internal legal counsel, a woman named Sarah, who looked like she would rather be anywhere else. "Sit down, Natalia," Marcus said. He slid a folder across the table. "Am I being terminated?" I asked. I remained standing. "We received a formal complaint this morning," Marcus said, ignoring my question, "and an anonymous tip. It alleges that you have been using Redwood's proprietary forensic tools to conduct unauthorized surveillance on a private citizen, specifically your husband." He paused for effect. "It also alleges that you have been leaking sensitive financial data belonging to Bishop Klein Advisory to third parties. That is a violation of our non-disclosure agreement and grounds for immediate termination for cause. It is also a potential criminal offense." My heart hammered against my ribs, but my face remained a mask of stone. This was the narrative Sloan was building. She wanted me fired. She wanted me discredited. If I was fired for data theft, no one would believe my whistleblower report. I would just be a disgruntled, unethical ex-employee. "Do you have proof?" I asked. "We have the complaint," Marcus said, "and we have logs showing you accessed your personal cloud during work hours." "Accessing personal cloud is not a crime," I said, "and investigating my own finances is not data theft." I pulled out my phone. "Put the phone away," Sarah snapped. "No," I said. "I'm calling my attorney. Her name is Nina Corbett. She specializes in labor law and intellectual property defense. Unless you want to add a wrongful termination lawsuit to the pile of litigation I'm currently drafting, you will wait until she gets here." I dialed Nina. She picked up on the first ring. I had briefed her last night after finding the memo. "I am on my way," Nina said. "Do not say a word. Do not sign anything. Ask for the source of the complaint." 40 minutes later, Nar walked into the room. She was a small woman with glasses, but she carried herself with the kinetic energy of a live wire. She did not sit down. She threw her briefcase on the table and looked at Marcus. "Let us be clear," Nar said. "My client submitted a whistleblower report to an independent compliance body regarding federal violations. She did so using her own memory and public records. She did not use Redwood algorithms. She did not use Redwood servers. She acted as a private citizen fulfilling a fiduciary duty." "We have an anonymous complaint," Marcus repeated, tapping the paper. "It says she used the Verify tool." "Show me the header," I said suddenly. Marcus blinked. "Excuse me. The complaint," I said. "It came via email, right? Or the web portal. Show me the header information. If you are accusing me of digital misconduct, you better have digital proof of the accuser." Sarah, the lawyer, looked at Marcus. She nodded. Marcus turned his laptop around. I scanned the email header. It was sent from a generic Proton mail address, but the routing information, the digital footprints that most people forgot to scrub, was still there. "Look at the originating IP address," I said, pointing to the string of numbers. 192.168. "That is a corporate block." I looked at Sarah. "Run a trace route on that IP right now." Sarah hesitated, then typed the numbers into her own laptop. She hit enter. A moment later, her face went pale. "Well," Nar asked. "It is registered to Bishop Klein Advisory," Sarah whispered, "specifically their guest network." The silence in the room shifted. It was no longer heavy with accusation against me. It was heavy with the realization that Redwood Signal Labs was being played. "So," Nar said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "you received an anonymous complaint accusing your top forensic investigator of misconduct. And it turns out the complaint came from inside the building of the very company she is blowing the whistle on. That is not a complaint, Marcus. That is corporate harassment. And if you fire her based on a hit job by a rival firm, Redwood will be liable for retaliation." Marcus looked at Sarah. Sarah closed her laptop firmly. "We are placing a legal hold on all of Natalie's accounts," Sarah said, "to protect her and to protect us. If Bishop Klein is trying to weaponize our HR department to fight their proxy war, we are not going to participate." She looked at me. "You are on paid administrative leave, a tailor, full salary. Access to the building is restricted, but your status is active. We will investigate the source of this email. If it is proven to be malicious, we will be filing our own complaint against Bishop Klein." I walked out of the building 10 minutes later. I had my job, I had my reputation, and now I had proof that they were desperate enough to try to get me fired. My phone rang as I got into my car. It was Coleman. "They want to talk," Coleman said. "But Derek's lawyer and Sloane's lawyer. They reached out 10 minutes ago. They want a mediation session today." "Why the rush?" I asked, starting the engine. "Because they are bleeding," Coleman said. "We stopped the asset freeze. You blew the whistle on Project Rio, and I think they just realized that the anonymous tip they sent to your boss backfired. They are trying to stop the hemorrhage." "What is the offer?" "They are offering a clean split," Coleman said. $5,050 on the house. You keep your retirement. Derek pays a lump sum of $200,000 for spousal support. It is a good deal, Natalier. Financially, it is everything you would get in court after 2 years of fighting. "What is the catch?" I asked. "The NDA," Coleman said. "It is thick, 5 pages, GIMS. It prohibits you from discussing the Garla. It prohibits you from discussing their business practices. And specifically, it requires you to withdraw any and all pending administrative reports regarding the Crownmere Community Fund." I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. They do not care about the divorce. They do not care about the house. They are terrified of the audit. Exactly. Coleman Sedlow knows that if the feds look at that charity, they will find the money laundering. And if they find the money laundering, they will find the cross-selling. "Rowan found something else?" I asked. "He is looking at it right now." Coleman said, "Meet us at my office. You need to see this." When I arrived at Coleman's office, Rowan was pacing. He had 3 whiteboards covered in diagrams. Red lines connected shell companies to real estate holdings to Bishop Klein accounts. "It is not just a Ponzi scheme," Rowan said, stopping when he saw me. "It is worse. Sloane is cross-selling bad debt." "Explain it, light. I am a jury." I said, "She has client A." Rowan said, drawing a circle, "Client has a toxic asset, a bad investment that is losing millions. She needs to get it off their books to secure her bonus. So she forces client B, usually a smaller, less sophisticated fund, like the charity, to buy that asset at an inflated price. She is dumping garbage on the charity." I said. "Yes," Rowan said, "and she is taking a consulting fee from client A for solving the liquidity problem and another fee from client B for strategic acquisition. She gets paid twice. Client A gets clean books. Client B gets a ticking time bomb. And Derek signs the checks for client B." I whispered. "Because he is the treasurer of the charity and the memo you found last night?" Rowan asked. "The one that lists you as the oversight advisor." "She forged my approval," I said, "so when the bomb goes off and the charity goes bankrupt, the investigators will see my name on the risk assessment. They will say I approved the purchase of the bad assets." Sloane walks away. Derek claims ignorance. I go to prison for fraud. I sat down. The chair felt hard and real beneath me. This was the trap. The empty seat at the Garler was not just an insult. It was the beginning of the frame-up. They needed to distance themselves from me publicly so that when the scandal broke, I would look like the rogue element. "If you sign the NDA," Coleman said softly, "you take the money and you walk away, but the forged documents still exist. If the IRS or the SEC ever investigates that charity, that NDA won't protect you from a subpoena. In fact, signing an NDA might look like you accepted hush money to cover up your crime." "I cannot sign it," I said. "If you refuse, they will fight." Coleman said, "They will drain your resources. They will drag your name through the mud. They are already doing that." I said, "I have one advantage. But they think I am just a scorned wife. I said, "They think I am looking for a payout. They do not know I found the memo. They do not know I have the IP logs from the HR complaint." I looked at Carmen. "Except the mediation meeting. You want to settle?" Carmen asked, surprised. "No," I said, "I want to get them in a room. I want to look Sloan in the eye, and I want them to admit that the consulting fees were structured payments. I need them to say it on the record. Mediation is confidential," Carmen warned. "Nothing said in that room can be used in court." "I know," I said, "but I do not need it for court. I need it for leverage. I need them to know that I know. And once I have them terrified, I'm going to make them turn on each other." "It is dangerous," Rowan said. "Sloan is cornered. Animals are most vicious when they are cornered." "So am I said. Carmen picked up the phone. "I will tell them we are coming. 400 today." I stood up and walked to the window. The city looked different now. It wasn't a playground for the rich anymore. It was a crime scene, and I was the only one who had brought a flashlight. "Rowan," I said, "do we have the printer logs from the Garler? The one that shows Derek viewing the changes?" "Yes." "Do we have the IP trace from the HR complaint?" "Yes." "And do we have the forged signature on the risk assessment?" "Yes." "Good." I said, "Pack the bags. We are going to a peace talk, and I am bringing a warhead." I went to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. There were dark circles under my eyes, but there was something else there too. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. I was Natalia Whitfield. I was a forensic compliance investigator. I hunted liars for a living, and I had been sleeping next to the biggest liar of them all for 6 years. It was time to wake up. I walked back out. "Let us go," I said. "I do not want to be late for my own execution." Carmen smiled. "Or theirs." The mediation room at the firm of Sterling, Holt Associates was designed to make people feel small. The table was a slab of polished black granite that looked less like furniture and more like a tombstone. The view from the 44th floor offered a panoramic look at the city, a visual reminder of everything you stood to lose if you did not agree to the terms on the paper. I walked and flanked by my army. Carmen Beelide was on my right, carrying a leather folio that contained the end of my marriage. Nina Corbett was on my left, carrying the intellectual property defense that would save my career. We were 5 minutes early, but they were already there. Derek sat on the far side of the table. He looked tired. His tie was loosened slightly, a violation of his usual impeccably groomed armor. Next to him sat Sterling, his lawyer, who was arranging a stack of documents with the precision of a car dealer. But it was the third person who made the air in the room turn toxic. Sloan Mercer. She was sitting next to Derek, leaning back in her chair with a casual predatory elegance. She was not a party to this divorce. She was not a lawyer. She was the other woman, the business partner, the architect of my humiliation. Her presence was a calculated insult. It was a message. I am in charge of him, and I am in charge of this. Carmen stopped moving. She looked at Sterling. "Mr. Sterling," Carmen said, her voice ice cold. "This is a closed mediation regarding a marital dissolution. MS. Mercer has no standing here. She needs to leave." Sterling cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable. "MS. Mercer is present in the capacity of a strategic advisor to Mr. Whitfield regarding the asset division of Bishop Klein Holdings. She is here because she does not trust him to speak for himself." I said. I pulled out the chair directly across from Sloan and sat down. I did not look at Derek. I looked straight at her. "Let her stay," I said. "I prefer to have all the co-conspirators in one room. It saves time." Sloan smiled. It was a thin, tight expression. A low "Natalia, you look rested considering the circumstances." I ignored her. I looked at Derek. "Let us begin," I said. Sterling pushed a document across the granite. It was the settlement agreement. "As discussed," Sterling said, "Mr. Whitfield is offering a lump sum of $200,000 plus 50% of the marital home's equity. In exchange, Mrs. Whitfield will sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement covering all personal and professional interactions with Mr. Whitfield and his associates, specifically including the events of the Garler and any internal business matters of Bishop Klein." I looked at the paper. It was a bribe. It was hush money dressed up as generosity. It is a generous offer, Matt, Derek said. His voice was pleading, but his eyes were shifting around the room, avoiding mine. Honestly, it is more than the statutory requirement. Can we just sign this? Put this behind us. It was just a chair. Everyone is blowing this out of proportion. It was just a chair. The phrase hung in the air. I let the silence stretch. I let his words bounce off the walls and land on the table, looking small and pathetic. A chair, I repeated slowly. You think this is about furniture, Derek? It was a seating error, Derek said, gaining a little false confidence. A logistical mix-up. You turned it into a tragedy because you were emotional, but I am willing to pay to make it go away. You are not paying for the chair, I said. You are paying for the silence. Sloane leaned forward. She placed her manicured hands on the table. The diamond on her finger caught the overhead light. Let us be adults here, Sloane said. Her voice was smooth, professional, the voice she used to close deals. A Taylor, you need to understand your position. You are a compliance officer. You are support staff. You do not understand the pressure Derek is under. He needs a partner who can navigate his world, a partner who understands the optics of power. You simply do not fit. We are offering you a golden parachute. Take it. Coleman started to speak, to object to the insult, but I held up a hand to stop her. I needed them to keep talking. I needed them to feel safe. Arrogance is a sedative. It makes people sloppy. I understand optics, I said softly. I understand that you needed to remove me from the picture to secure the narrative. I picked up the pen. I held it over the signature line of the NDA. I will sign, I said. The tension in the room broke instantly. Derek let out a long exhale. Sterling nodded. Even Sloane's shoulders dropped half an inch. They thought they had won. They thought money solved everything. I will sign, I continued, my voice hardening. On one condition, name it, Derek said quickly. I want the narrative clarified in the agreement. I said, this NDA states that I cannot discuss the incident at the Garler, but I need to know what I am agreeing to keep quiet about. Was it an accident, or was it a strategy? It does not matter, Sterling interjected. The clause covers everything. It matters to me. I said, if I am going to sell my silence for $200,000, I want to know exactly what I'm selling. I want an addendum that states the removal of my name card was a deliberate action taken to manage public perception, a plan B, if you will. I watched Sloane's face at the mention of plan B. Her eyes flickered. It was a micro-expression of recognition. We cannot put that in writing, Sterling said. That implies malice. Then I do not sign, I said, putting the pen down. If it was just an accident, why do you need an NDA? You only need an NDA to cover up a strategy. I looked at Sloane. I challenged her ego. Unless, of course, it wasn't a strategy. Unless it was just a mistake. Maybe you aren't the genius mastermind everyone says you are, Sloane. Maybe you just forgot to print a card. Sloane's jaw tightened. She could not handle being called incompetent. She could handle being called cruel, but not stupid. It was not a mistake, Sloane snapped. Sloane, Sterling warned. No, Sloane said, waving him off. She looked at me with cold disdain. You want the truth, Natalie, you're fine. Yes, it was a strategy. It was plan B. We knew you would never sign the postnut voluntarily. You are too stubborn. We needed to create a situation where your behavior would justify a separation. We needed to break you publicly so we could rebuild Derek's image without you attached to it. Coleman was writing furiously on her legal pad. So, I said, keeping my voice steady though my heart was racing, you admit that you and Derek conspired to inflict emotional distress to force a financial outcome, that Plan B was a premeditated act. It was a business decision, Sloane said, lifting her chin. And it worked. Look at you. You are sitting here begging for a settlement. Let the record show, Coleman said, looking up from her pad. At MS, Mercer has admitted to a conspiracy to commit fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And since she is acting as Mr. Whitfield's advisor, her admission is binding on him. Derek's face went white. He looked at Sloane with horror. Sloane, Derek whispered, shut up. You just gave them the case. Sloane turned on him. The mask of the loving partner vanished. replaced by the sneer of a boss addressing an underling. "Do not tell me to shut up," she hissed. "I am the only reason you are sitting in that chair. Derek, I fixed your deals. I fixed your image. I am fixing your wife. You need to be tougher. Stop looking like a terrified puppy and close the deal." She turned back to me. "It does not matter what I admitted. This is a mediation. It is privileged. Nothing said here leaves this room. You have no recording. It is your word against ours." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had forged my signature, stolen my husband, and tried to frame me for a federal crime. "You are right," I said. "Mediation is privileged." I stood up. I picked up the NDA. I ripped it in half. The sound of the paper tearing was the only noise in a room. "But the whistleblower report I filed with the Bishop Klein Compliance Department this morning, that is not privileged," I said. Sloan froze. "And the request for a forensic audit I sent to the Crown Community Fund Board of Directors yesterday," I continued. "That is definitely not privileged. I lean over the table and the package of evidence I have prepared for the SEC regarding the cross-selling of toxic assets between your primary fund and the charity, that is public record." The moment I hit send, Derek stood up. He was shaking. "Nat, wait. What are you talking about toxic assets?" "She did not tell you," I asked, looking at Derek with mock pity. "She is using the charity to dump her bad debt, Derek, and she is using your signature to do it. You are the treasurer. When the feds come, they are not going to look at her. They are going to look at the man who signed the checks." Derek looked at Sloan. "Is that true? Is that what the consulting fees were?" Sloan did not look at him. She was staring at me, her eyes narrowed to slits. "You are bluffing," Sloan said. "You do not have access to those files. You are a housewife." "I am a forensic compliance investigator," I corrected her. "And I know about the memo, Sloan. The one where you forged my name as the oversight advisor, the one you planted on the server to make me the fall guy." The color drained from Sloan's face for the first time. She looked afraid. She realized she wasn't playing against a jealous wife. She was playing against a prosecutor. "I am not signing your NDA," I said. "I am not taking your money. I do not want the house. I do not want the pension." "And what do you want?" Derek cried out. "What do you want, Natalier?" "I want the truth," I said. I turned to leave. "You think you can destroy me?" Sloan shouted. Her voice cracked, losing its polished veneer. She stood up, knocking her chair over. "I am Bishop Clean. I bring in the revenue. You are nobody. You think you can take me down?" I stopped at the door. I turned back. I looked at the three of them, the lawyer, the husband, the mistress. They looked like rats on a sinking ship. "I am not destroying you, Sloan," I said calmly. "I am just turning on the lights. If you cannot survive the glare, that is your problem." I walked out into the hallway. My legs felt weak, but my head was clear. I had done it. I had walked into the fire and I had not burned. Nar's phone rang. It was a harsh, jarring sound in the quiet corridor. She stopped. She looked at the caller ID. "It is my contact at the district attorney's office." Nar whispered. She answered. She listened for 10 seconds. Her eyes widened. She looked at me. "Okay," Nar said into the phone. "Thank you. Yes, we are available." She hung up. She looked at Carmen, then at me. "That was not a social call," Menor said. "That was a heads up." The whistleblower report triggered an immediate flag because of the amount of money involved. They did not wait for an internal review. "What happened?" I asked. "The Department of Justice just issued a subpoena for the financial records of the Crown Community Fund," Nar said. "And they issued a warrant for the seizure of digital devices belonging to the fund's officers." She paused. "The first name on the warrant is Sloan Mercer." I looked back at the closed door of the conference room. I could hear shouting from inside. Derek was yelling. Sloan was screaming. The lights were on. We did not go to lunch. We did not go to celebrate the small victory in the mediation room. We walked straight from the offices of Sterling Holt Associates to the headquarters of the independent audit firm that Kalman had coordinated with during the chaos of the last hour. The meeting took place in a windowless room on the 12th floor. There was no mahogany table here. There were no views of the city to distract us. There was only a white laminate table, harsh fluorescent lighting, and the hum of a server stack in the corner. This was where the truth lived. It was not pretty, but it was absolute. Across from me sat the lead auditor for the Crownmere Community Fund, a man named Mr. Vance, and the external compliance officer for Bishop Clean, a woman named MS. Hargrave. They looked like undertakers. I did not offer a preamble. I did not tell them about my broken heart. I'd opened my bag and laid out the anatomy of a crime. Item 1, I said, sliding the USB drive across the table. Security footage from the Crownmere Conservatory recorded yesterday between 6:00 and 7 in the evening. It shows Derek Whitfield and Sloan Mercer conspiring to alter the seating arrangement. It establishes intent to humiliate and distress. Item 2, Coleman added, placing the printed screenshot of the Plan B next to the drive. Evidence of premeditation. This outlines a strategy to destabilize my client, psychologically to force an unfavorable postnuptial agreement. Item 3, I said, laying down the torn pieces of the NDA I had just refused to sign. An attempted bribe. They offered me $200,000 to suppress information regarding the fund's financial activities. MS. Hargrave picked up the NDA. She read the clause about the administrative reports, her eyebrows knitted together. And finally, I said, placing the internal memo on the table, the one Sloan had forged. Item 4, a document assigning liability for risk assessment to me, an honorary advisor who has never attended a meeting. This was created to shield the officers of the fund from regulatory scrutiny. Mr. Vance pulled a laptop toward him. We received the subpoena from the Department of Justice 10 minutes ago, he said. His voice was dry. We have been granted emergency access to the internal transaction logs of the fund. We are cross-referencing your claims now. The room fell silent for 20 minutes. The only sound was the clicking of Mr. Vance's keyboard and the turning of pages. I sat with my hands folded. I was not nervous. The time for nerves was over. I was in the system now. Mr. Vance stopped typing. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked at MS. Hargrave, then at me. Mrs. Bass Whitfield, he said, you were correct about the consulting fees. There are 6 payments totaling $850,000 paid to a shell entity in the Caymans. Sloan signed them. I said, yes, Mr. Vance said Sloan Mercer is the final signatory. However, the accounting software logs the originator of the request, the person who set up the vendor profile and initiated the invoices. He turned the screen around. The originator was user ID D. Whitfield. I stared at the screen. I felt a cold shock, like stepping into freezing water, but it passed quickly. Derek, I whispered. He was not just a puppet, Coleman said, reading the data. He was the mechanism. Sloan designed the structure, but Derek turned the key. He built the vendor. He requested the payment. He is not a victim of her manipulation. A tailor, he is her accomplice. MS. Hargrave stood up. She pulled a radio from her belt. This is a code red compliance violation involving senior partners. Initiate immediate suspension protocols for Sloan Mercer and Derek Whitfield. Lock their accounts. Revoke building access. Dispatch security to the mediation room at Sterling. Halt associates. They are still there. I said they are arguing. Not for long. MS. Hargrave said. We followed the compliance team back to the Bishop Klein offices, which were connected by a skybridge. I needed to see it. I needed to see the end. When we arrived at the executive suite, it was chaos. Security guards were standing at the glass doors of Derek's office. Sloan was on the phone in the hallway, her face twisted in a retch of rage. You cannot do this, she screamed into her cell phone. I am the rainmaker. Get me the managing partner. This is a misunderstanding. MS. Mercer, Miss. Hargrave said, stepping forward. Please end the call. That phone is company property and is now evidence in a federal investigation. Sloan spun around. She saw me. Her eyes went wide. She looked at the phone, then at me. She tried to type something, perhaps to delete a message, perhaps to warn someone else. Log it, Ms. Hargrave said to her assistant. She's attempting to alter data after a preservation order. A security guard stepped forward and gently but firmly took the phone from Sloan's hand. Sloan looked at her empty palm, then at me. The arrogance was gone. The poise was gone. She looked small. "You ruined everything," she hissed at me. "Do you know how much money we were going to make? You petty, jealous little—" "I did not ruin anything," I said. My voice was calm, cutting through the noise of the office. "I just audited the books." Then the elevator doors opened. Marjorie came rushing out. She must have been alerted by Derek. She was not wearing her usual composed mask. Her hair was slightly askew. She saw the guards. She saw Sloan being escorted toward a conference room. She saw Derek sitting in his office, his head in his hands, a security guard standing over him. Then she saw me. She marched over, her heels clicking frantically on the marble. She reached out, trying to grab my arm, trying to pull me into a corner. "Nathalie," she said, her voice breathless. "We need to talk. Family business. We can fix this. I can talk to the board. We just need to say it was a misunderstanding. Think about the family name." I stepped back. I did not let her touch me. "There is no family name to protect." "Marjorie," I said, "there is only a case number." "You ungrateful girl." She spat, her face flushing red. "I tried to teach you. I tried to show you how to be a wife in this world. You need to learn your position." The hallway went silent. The receptionists, the junior analysts, the security guards, everyone stopped to listen. I looked at the woman who had handed me a plastic badge the night before. I looked at the woman who had ripped my name in half. "You did teach me my position," I said. My voice was clear and carried to every corner of the room. "And today I am returning the favor. I am putting you back in yours." I turned my back on her. I walked away behind me. I heard Marjorie gasp, but I did not turn around. I walked out of the building and into the afternoon sun. The next 48 hours were a blur of headlines. Sloan tried to spin it. She released a statement through a crisis PR firm claiming that she was the victim of a vendetta by a disgruntled spouse and that the allegations were personal, not professional. It lasted exactly 3 hours. Then the independent audit report was leaked to the press. It did not talk about feelings. It talked about $850,000. It talked about shell companies. It talked about fraud. The narrative shifted instantly. It went from Real Housewives drama to Wolf of Wall Street crime. The divorce court moved with the speed of a guillotine. With the federal investigation looming and the evidence of the Plan B conspiracy entered into the record, Derek's lawyers had no leverage. They capitulated on everything. I got the settlement. I got the restitution for the funds I had contributed to the house. I got a permanent restraining order against Derek, Sloan, and Marjorie, citing a pattern of harassment and conspiracy to inflict harm. But the money did not matter. The house did not matter. 3 days later, I received an email. It was from the acting interim director of the Crownmere Community Fund, Mrs. Whitfield. In light of the recent removals of the treasurer and the fundraising chair, the board is holding an emergency meeting to restructure the organization and ensure transparency. As the whistleblower who saved the fund from total collapse, we would be honored if you would attend. The location was the Crownmere Conservatory. I arrived at 7 in the evening. The room was the same as it had been the night of the gala. The glass ceiling still revealed the stars. The orchids still smelled of expensive perfume, but the atmosphere was different. There was no music. There was no champagne. There was only a long table set up in the center of the room filled with serious people, donors, community leaders, artists. I walked toward the table. At the head of the table, where the guest of honor usually sat, there was a chair. 3 days ago, my name had been ripped off this table. 3 days ago, I had been told to stand in the aisle. I walked up to the chair. A pristine white card was placed on the linen. "Mrs. Nathalie Whitfield, Financial Oversight Advisor." I looked at the seat next to it, the seat where Derek had sat. It was empty. His name was gone. I looked at the seat across from it, the seat where Sloan had sat in her crimson dress. It was occupied by a forensic accountant from the state attorney's office. I did not make a speech. I did not look around for approval. I pulled out the chair, the legs scraped softly against the floor, a sound of grounding, of reality. I sat down. I took my phone out of my purse. It was the same phone I had used to take the screenshots. The same phone I had used to record Marjorie. The same phone I had used to blow the whistle. I placed it face down on the table. It was over. The noise was gone. The gaslighting was gone. The game was over. I looked at the interim director. I nodded once. "Shall we begin?" I asked. And for the first time in a long time, the room listened. Thank you so much for listening to my story and walking this path of justice with me. Please comment down below where you are listening from. I would love to hear your thoughts and connect with you all. Make sure to subscribe to Azad Revenge Stories. Like this video and smash that hype button so more people can hear the truth. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.